Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the FPL Wire Gameweek 1 pod, where we will be discussing strikers, all the preseason friendlies, our drafts, and also doing a Q&A ahead of Gameweek 1. I'm your host, Zoph, and I'm joined by my friend, Big Man Bakar. How are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zoph. Really looking forward to this pod. Finally, I've waited for this for like the past 2 months, honestly, and I can't wait to get rolling for the start of the new season.
What about you, LR? How's it going? How are the drafts coming along?
That's secondary. Bucker's been waiting for 2 months for this. It looks like you've been waiting for 2 months for this. Look at you. Look at that hair. Look at that
It's a
tie.
special
It's
occasion,
all
so it calls for a special. It calls for special attention. It calls for a special attire. So why not?
special occasion because it's a striker pod, and we're going to be talking about your favorite striker.
Unfortunately, he's not in my thoughts. So let's avoid that for now.
No, but on a very, very serious note, Bucker looking really, really sharp. Really sharp. Nice way to start the season. Yeah, man, the head
Thank
is
you. Thank you.
speeding at the moment, like going on at around 200 kilometers an hour. I mean, all three of us have also been discussing FPL literally every 2 seconds. So just can't wait to get stuck in. Can't wait for. I'm actually glad that the game week 1 deadline is on a Friday. A, because the casuals will get caught out, hopefully. And B, because you can breathe finally. I mean, otherwise the head will keep running until the
Saturday,
deadline reaches.
at least Saturday morning, you can have some peace, right? You know, it's done.
Yeah. Yep. Are you boys feeling settled with your lineups, Bakar?
More or less. I mean, there are 3 to 4 players who I'm considering in and out of my team, but other than that, I'm fairly settled now. The team is starting to take shape, and I know more or less how I will look heading into the new season. It's more or less between 2 drafts, which I have to pick between now.
About you, Zoph?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty settled. I would say at least on pretty settled. I don't see it changing too much now.
Yeah, I think we've been discussing. I think all our thoughts are eventually converging. I won't be surprised if all our drafts have at least maybe 11, 12 players common at the very least.
Yeah, no more
Yeah.
spoilers there. We'll get that to the end. Let's just go to our sponsor plugs, then we will start with the strikers.
All right, cool.
Right. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below. They're also tying up with some top notch Premier League clubs, which we will announce shortly.
Also, the FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all the stats used in our podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already. You'll find the links in the description below. And right now is just a great time to sign up. Also, a big thank you to all of you who have supported us with our preseason coverage. We've been receiving a lot of Patreon subscriptions as well, and I just want to give a shout out to them. Thank you, Mike Burke. Thank you, Marvin Andre. Thank you, Santa Cruz. And thank you, Santa Day. All right, then. Bakar, just make sure you're close to the mic because a couple of people in the chat
Sure.
are complaining that you're a little soft. So just we'll need to be mindful of
Sure.
that. But yeah, we can dive right into it, Zoph.
Right. So let's start the pod with first our discussion on forwards. We have a table here by mbison22 on Twitter, taken from Fantasy Football Scout. Here he talks about certain players, not only strikers, but I think it's mostly strikers. What percentage of their shots are taken from inside the box, and what percentage of shots are taken from the 6-yard box? Any names stand out to you here, LR?
Yes, a certain Michael Antonio. I mean, look at the percentage of shots he's taking from inside the box, and he's leading the league for the percentage of shots taken inside the 6-yard box. No wonder that his NPXG per 90 is league leading, not amongst just strikers but all attackers. And he seems like he's had a good preseason. He's played about 85-90% of the minutes as well. So looks like a good pick at the start of the season. What do you think about Antonio, Bakar?
I think he's a great option to have at the start of the season, particularly. You can look at his percentage of shots from in the 6-yard box, and
You could
it's
get a
no
little
surprise.
closer, Bakar, to the mic.
Sure. There's and it's no surprise that he's scored all his goals from the inside the box so far in the Premier League, and he's that kind of a striker. You know, he's a bit of a predator. who likes lurking in the box. He gets high quality chances. So whenever fit, his numbers are usually great. You look at his XG per 90, non-pen XG per 90. Those kind of numbers are very good for Antonio. And West Ham are the kind of team which sort of strike me as one which we can rely on for attack, no matter whatever the fixture. I sort of back them to score. Even if they're playing, City or Liverpool, you can't really rule them out from scoring a goal. So I mean, they're kind of fixture proof for in terms of their attacking potential, in my opinion, which is why I think he's a very good option to begin with at the start of the season.
And good fixtures to start as well.
Good fixtures. And let's talk about some other names over here. Let's do first the shots inside the box column. What I loved here is Bruno. Even though obviously he's not a forward, I think it's worth mentioning. Only 40% of his shots were from inside the box, and only 2%, only two shots from inside the 6 yard box. Now, Bamford, 89% from shots from inside the box, 12% from the 6 yard area.
What
Watkins,
what
go ahead.
strikes out with Bamford also is that he's just not a shot merchant and a goal merchant. He got 11 assists, if I'm not mistaken, last season as well, which is what is a genuine asset. He's a little bit like Jimenez because he was the only other striker who used to clock a lot of assists in addition to the goals. So that's something that's in Bamford's book as well.
Yeah, 89% shots. Watkins with 90% of shots from inside the box, 11% from the 6 yard box. Mane,
Just while you're on Watkins, I have a stat as well from Watkins 3 seasons while he was playing at Brentford. More of his and in the first 2 seasons in Brentford, he was playing as a winger, and in the final season, he was playing as a striker. And when he was playing as a winger at Brentford, 33 and 26% of his shots came from outside the box, compared to just 10% of his shots while he was playing as striker at Brentford, which is, I think, something similar to what we're going to see maybe this season. We'll talk about how Aston Villa lined up in their final preseason game a little later, but just I think a lot of people have gone off Watkins. He's in injury doubt also at the moment, and rightly so.
Calvert-Lewin is someone I think is really missing. That's why the squads are looking a bit more template. 25% of his shots were from the 6 yard box. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
he was a 6 yard merchant, and Ancelotti told him to just stick there and not move from there at all. Any names out here, Bakar, that jump out to you?
Other than that, I don't think there are. I mean, there's Vardy at 10% and Callum Wilson at 14%, but I don't really think with the options that we have it makes too much sense to go with Vardy, especially for 10.5. And Wilson is in my thoughts, but Wilson, I mentioned a couple of days ago, about his conversion rate, his percentages of involvement. That's like 58%, which is higher than anyone who played 1,000 plus minutes last season in the Premier League. So that's better than Kane, Salah, all those kind of people. So whenever Newcastle score, he's highly likely to be involved. And another thing which I like about the Newcastle attack now is that they're signing Willock. Saint Maximan is fit again. So their attack looks in good shape. But what worries me with Wilson is the injury. And if I am picking Antonio, then I don't think I have the heart to go with two players with those kind of
Yeah.
hamstrings. I don't think
And
so.
maybe even Ings also to that. Yeah.
Yeah, Ings as well to a certain extent. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
But I
and
think you take that chance with that. I mean, the odds of all three getting injured are really, really high. If there is an injury, I mean, you deal with it when it happens. But Wilson's just, especially since they've got their new coach, Graham Jones, in Newcastle, have been in almost European League form. That's the kind of football that they've been playing. And with St. Max, Willock, and Wilson all there, Fraser's had a good season. I think Newcastle are going to surprise a few people at the start of the season. Their fixtures are pretty good as well. I really, really like him as a pick.
yeah,
On penalties as well, his XG per 90 is in the top 6 or 7 in the league amongst all attackers as well. So really, really solid numbers.
clear talisman. But yeah, Antonio's 27% of shots in the 6 yard box, the highest in the comparison, is what we really wanted to highlight in this graphic over here.
Right, we can move on to the next one.
Now,
Also, just before we
Just a
move
second.
on,
Just a second. One more stat on Newcastle before we move on.
Sure, please.
So the last 11 game weeks of the season, Newcastle were 11th for XG, and they scored 19 goals in 11 games. That's how good they were.
But
Like 29 big chances, 29 big chances in 11 games. That's almost 3 big chances per game. That's a lot for someone like Newcastle. That's a
yeah,
lot. That's very, very surprising. 29 big chances in 11 games at
it's
the end
all
of the
Graham
season.
Jones. I mean, I mentioned this on the previous pod as well. There are so many interviews coming out from Newcastle, and I actually give credit. I was talking to FPL Rouser, and he's like, you have to give credit to Steve Bruce for identifying that he's not with the times, and he got a more sophisticated coach into the team. And even when you're looking at Newcastle games, Graham Jones is actually on the pitch line, sideline, screaming instructions to all his players. So he's actually the coach of that team, and he's made a massive difference to that team. And I think that should change the perception of Wilson. I mean, while we're on Wilson,
I
I
agree.
mean,
I
we
agree.
need to mention that we need. Let's just take a
And this
couple
is
of
why I
minutes
think
to
that
talk about.
sure.
I just wanted to talk a couple of minutes about Willock as well, because he was one of the league's top scorers in the league. He ended game week 27 onwards. He scored 8.13 points per 90. I got these stats from my friend Baker 343 FPL. Those are just staggering numbers. Are we ignoring him at 6 million? The thing I'm guessing the thing is we just don't know if he's going to be starting game week 1. I reckon Bruce throws him straight in because it's not like he hasn't had a preseason, but it's genuine strong 6 million option to consider now.
Has he had his medical yet? I don't think so.
I think he'll be ready. I think they officially announced the signing, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure about that.
I don't think they've announced a signing. I think for game week 2 he probably start. Game week 1 I would just be worried. I think not enough training with the team and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we'll have news by Friday anyway in terms of what's happening with Willock.
Right. Should we move on?
Yeah, just before
Sure.
we move on, I think we have around 474 people in the chat at the moment. Guys, just make sure you're hitting like and subscribe. The moment you hit like, it's easier for us to get found. So it'll really, really help us and we appreciate it. Let's move on.
Could you you want to walk us through this graphic, Ella?
Yes, so this is non-penalty XG plus XA per 90, and this is amongst all forwards in the league. Now, Kane is somebody we all know about, and the fact is that he's top for non-penalty XG plus XA. He's on pens, and he's probably the best finisher in the league as well. So all three things are in favor. Nuno just mentioned that he's looking like he's going to be starting for game week 1, but there's still a little bit of uncertainty with Mr. Harry Kane. Are you guys considering him at all?
Nope.
No, not at all. Not for me personally. Until this saga dies down, I don't think
Yes.
I didn't recommend investing in him. At least not
Not
this month.
not before
I
game week
think
3.
just let this month go and then we can see.
Correct.
Exactly.
When I was looking at these numbers in off season as well, Cavani's NPXG plus XA per 90 numbers really stood out to me, where he's just behind Kane at 0.66. The problem with him, I was actually very bullish on him when the game launched at 8.5 million, because I was like, I think he's going to start the first 4 games, etc. But I think he's joining us really late. I'm not expecting him to start our season. It's a shame because he would have been a great differential early on, because when he's on the pitch, his numbers are really good. Any other names jumping out to you, Zoph?
Antonio, of course, 0.62 right up there. Timo, the less said the better, and we'll cover Timo a bit more when we talk about Lukaku. Iheanacho is somebody who I was considering, and I know you had him in that draft you did for official FPL also, but I think the uncertainty we saw, what struck me in the Shield was he wasn't even one of the few subs that was brought on. He was part of the second batch of subs. So I think with all the rotation risk, I really don't think it's worth going there. Firmino, Rodrigo. Rodrigo's been getting some minutes. Go ahead, Bakar.
The absence of Watkins is something which I find a bit surprising. I think it's mostly down to the fact that their numbers dropped. Villa's numbers dropped in the second half of the season without Grealish, because his numbers were phenomenal in the first half of the season. And I'm sure if we compile this data for the first 19 game weeks, we'd probably find Watkins in the top 5 or 6 players. And to see him completely miss out is mostly down to the fact that Villa were lacking creativity at the end of the season.
Correct.
Also, their per 90 stats. Watkins was one of the few players who used to play 90 minutes week on week. So when we actually look at the XGI data compiled for the season and not the per 90 stats, he will come up right there because he's essentially not very injury prone. A lot of questions in the chat about Rodrigo being an option. He's gotten minutes in preseason, but I saw a couple of highlights. I saw the past 2 preseason games that Leeds had in the highlights. Bamford was hogging majority of their chances. Most of them fell to Bamford. So I'm not sure about Rodrigo early season. I think if you're going a lead striker, go with the main man, go with Bamford.
Yeah, I saw the last friendly and Roberts got subbed on for him also. I think that's going to be a common occurrence.
Yep. It's a shame. Also, let's just touching on Kelechi. I think he's a fabulous player, but I think what has also happened is Barnes is in tremendous touch at the moment, and he's probably one of Leicester's best players. And the injury that has happened at the centre backs has led to them switching their formation and moving to a 4-3-3 as well, because they can't play three centre backs at the moment. So that's the problem as well with Kelechi and Nacho at the moment.
Correct.
This will also have a knock-on effect on Vardy. I think in case Leicester opt with one up top, I think Vardy is likely to get more goals, because when he was playing part of a two-man strike force with Iheanacho last season, he was sort of creating chances rather than finishing them. And I think now he'll basically, most of the chances will fall to Vardy, and we'll probably see him score more goals this season.
Right.
It's unfortunate though that they've priced him very, very highly. I mean, at 9 million, I would have probably considered him.
Yeah,
Nine,
10.5. The
9.5.
only reason I could possibly consider Vardy is that he's a placeholder for somebody like Lukaku. That's one thing
Yeah,
to keep in
exactly,
mind. If
exactly,
you want to keep that big up top
exactly.
striker,
I mean, those first three fixtures for Leicester, they aren't bad. I mean,
they're
Wolves at
good.
home, then
They're
West
very
Ham
good.
away, and Norwich away. I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised to see Vardy score in each one of them fixtures. So that's not that bad a strategy for someone who's looking to keep a slot in the forward slot for Lukaku.
Correct. Anything else on this graphic? Should we move on?
We can move on, I reckon.
This is now the overall expected goal involvement over the whole season, not per 90. Actually, you have the big guys, Kane and Vardy up top. Bamford just highlights how good value he is at 8. Very unfortunate that Calvert-Lewin and Watkins are doubts. Firmino is also a doubt. Mope, I don't think much needs to be said there.
No. Actually, let's touch
Yeah.
upon Mope, because our entire analytics group that exists on FPL Twitter at the moment are very, very hot on Mope. And I see the reasoning behind that, because his numbers are always good. His finishing isn't the best, but Brighton have a good set of fixtures at the start of the season. And there's an argument. I mean, it's worth just mentioning that for people who want to go there, that they can go to Mope given the fixtures. He looks like he's going to be starting the season. Is he on pens, or is Groff on pens at the moment?
I think Gross took the last pen.
Yeah, so I think he's
Yeah,
on
he
pens,
did.
but there is an argument for going for a striker like Mope against an Ivan Toney at this price point, given the fixtures that Brighton have at the start of the season.
Okay. As far as I know, he didn't start their last friendly. You had Connolly who started, so I don't know. He came on the Mope, so I don't know exactly what the deal is. You might want to monitor that.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it previous times, many times on this pod. I'm not the biggest fan of his finishing, and absolutely, I'm not a fan of the player either. But just wanted to make sure that we're being devil's advocate with.
Yeah, we should be comprehensive. We shouldn't really rule anyone out due to past bias.
All right, now move lower. We have to talk about that guy.
That guy? Oh yeah, we've spoken enough about Antonio and Werner. Let's talk about our main man, Bakar. The floor is yours.
No, it's not mine. You go on and do the honors. You just do the honors. It's
Come on,
certainly
you
not mine.
Okay,
I mean, on a serious note, I'm not considering him because he's. I expect Burnley to revert to type at the start of the season. They'll be more defensive. I mean, at the end of the season, generally we have noticed this trend with the Burnley where they're more attacking, so their forwards tend to get more chances. At the beginning of the season, they'd be more circumspect. They'd probably be looking to win, by the odd goal here and there. So I won't be recommending investing in any of their strikers to begin with.
So you're not getting Wood, Bakar?
Unfortunately, not for you, Zoph.
So another name like Lacazette, I thought looked quite good. I know he's not really on most people's radar. I thought between him and Aubameyang, he was a better looking striker over the weekend.
The thing with Laka is he's a risk, because the moment Saka comes into the team, and Saka will come into that team, one of Oba or Lacazette are potentially going to sit out, and the other is going to play a striker. Because I think Saka is the best player on the wing, so he's going to be there.
I think Wilson, Adams, you covered about. Richarlison is again somebody who could have been an option, but I think they just won the World Cup. I don't think he'll be joining up with the squad anytime soon. Iheanacho covered, Jesus covered. Ings, we'll talk about later on. Specifically this tweet, Bakar. Why don't you read it out
Just
first?
one last point on the Brighton just one last point on the Brighton forwards we were talking about. So as we said, I was compiling some data. 31 big chances fell to Mope and Welbeck combined together last season. 31 big chances for both of them. Only 11 were converted.
Wow.
That's how bad they were.
No shock. No
That's how
shock.
bad they
Man.
were. Legit. Like that's almost like 10 goals less than what they actually should have scored.
What was that percentage again? I don't remember the numbers.
11 out of 31 were scored.
I,
That's almost
I,
like
Below
I bet
33.
33%.
Below 33%. Yeah.
Below 33, yeah, 30%. That's abysmal.
Terrible.
I wager most of that is Neil Maupay. Welbs is good. Welbs is a solid,
Yeah.
solid
Yeah. Webb's
player.
conversion
He's a
is
good-
good.
Welbs has 4 from 13. So Welbs missed
Oh.
significant amount of them. Welbs has 4 from 13.
Oh yeah. Don't you remember?
Yeah.
He's a scorer of great goals. He's not a great goal scorer, as Martin Tyler
fair
said.
Yeah, Welbs has 4 from 13, and Mope has 7 from 18 actually. So Mope is not that bad. Welbeck has been really poor though.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I just want to
moving
put
on.
it out there that I don't think it's a bad
sure.
shout. 6.5 Neil Maupay. As much as I despise him, given the fixtures, I think it's a decent shout. I'm not going there, but worth mentioning.
Go ahead, Bakar. Floor is
Okay.
yours.
Anyways, moving on. So this is a tweet I compiled for Danny Ings and his conversion rate. Ollie Watkins last season, big chances 24, converted just 11 of them. I think I owned him from like game week 5 till probably game week 35 or 36. So I remember me tearing my hair out every single time he missed a big chance. So I can certainly relate to that. So this is not something I had to sort of find or recall, because this is something which was sort of etched in my memory. So 11 out of 24, that's like a conversion percentage of 46. Danny Ings, meanwhile, over the past couple of seasons, 21 goals from 35 big chances with a conversion rate of 60%, which is very, very impressive. Anything around 50 for a striker is decent. Ings with 60%. I mean, now the counter argument to this can be then that you'd probably expect that with Buendia possibly missing out and Grealish not being there anymore, you'd expect Ings not to get a similar level of service. But I certainly think he's worth starting with, given the fact he's playing Watford, Brentford, and Newcastle in the opening 3 fixtures. I mean, he's too good a player to miss out. Honestly, he's the kind of player who even converts a half chance. And I watched their friendly yesterday, in fact, and he looked sharp. He looked very, very sharp. So I think he could be a good option to begin the season with.
Yeah, and also just want to mention for the benefit of the listeners, these numbers that you are big chance conversion rates. When it comes to goal conversion rates, Ings' stats last season were around 21%. Just what it was worth mentioning.
And where does that rank amongst forwards who played regularly?
Generally, he's generally got a good conversion rate. He's always up there when it comes to conversion rate. He's only behind Harry Kane, Mo Salah, and Jamie Vardy for the number of goals scored in the last 2 Premier League seasons as well. So that's pretty significant. I mean, those are big names, and he's just behind them. The one thing that I want to mention with Bakar's tweet here is that how many big chances is going to get this season, and especially early season, is something worth considering, because when you have Jack Grealish in your team, who's one of the biggest chance creators in the league, it's easier to get so many big chances. And when you take him away from your team, it's a different sort of a setup. That said, we can see that he doesn't need too many big chances at all because of his high conversion rate, but don't expect him to get as many chances as he used to.
Right. Good that Bakar is back with us. I thought he had dropped for a second. Bakar, can you say something just to make sure you're with us? I think we lost him momentarily. He'll probably come back.
Yeah, he'll come back.
Right. Now we're just talking, as we were talking about this chart from Ted, small chance conversion and big chance conversion.
Yes, we can hear you, Bakar.
No, I can't hear him also. He's not showing up on my feed.
You need to change his output settings, is what he's saying.
Probably.
I can hear him. This is like a matrix kind of a thing happening.
Yeah.
While Bakar and Zoph sort that out, what we can see in this chart out
It's
here
fine
is,
now. It's fine.
Yeah. Now we should.
what we can see in this chart here, given to us by TED Talks FPL, is that Ings is actually good. Yeah, Ted is in the chat. Thank you, Ted, for sending us to it. Follow him, subscribe him. He's done a fabulous job and helped us in preseason as well. So what you can see here is that Ings is actually good with small chance conversion as well as big chance conversion. What you can also see in this chart is the sheer number of big chances that Bamford and Wood tend to miss, which we'll also see in the table later. But they do tend to miss. Imagine if Bamford improves on his conversion, he'll become an even better asset. Do you think he improves on his total last season, boys?
Bamford, how many did he score last season?
Bamford scored, I don't know, but he had close to 180 Premier League points, FPL points, if I'm not mistaken.
They're not.
He
Are they
scored 17 goals last season.
okay? Well, the audio volume just went up. I need to turn that down. Let me fix that. Yeah, now it's fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just a little bit of a mention, guys. This is the first time we are going live with our new software, so there might be a few issues, but we'll sort it out in one or two streams for sure. All right, move on, Zoph.
Right. The next one is the chart I really like now. But the one
No,
thing
no.
you
Let's discuss about Bamford, etc. I
Bamford
think
again.
that
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that chart discuss.
Sure, no, I thought he said move on. That's why. So yeah, Bamford. I think 17. They've not really signed another striker, so why can't he hit 20 goals?
Yeah, he just needs to up his conversion a little. I expect Leeds to get better this season as well. Do you think teams will get more mindful of Leeds as an overtly attacking unit and start sitting back against them?
What I'm more worried about is how do Leeds adapt? Like you saw the second half Leeds, are they going to be
Yeah.
as gung ho? Or are we going to see them second half? Especially, I want to see how they're like in the big games, and that we're going to get a preview of that early on. So that should be
Correct.
interesting.
Anything to add from this chart, Bakar?
Not necessarily, but from Zoph's point regarding Leeds' approach, the one thing I like about them is that, and I mentioned this on the last part as well, that most of their players have had a proper preseason, so they've been training with Bielsa, and they've been very sharp apparently in the friendlies. So, um, I mean, they have a fixture-proof attack as well. So, I mean, I won't be too mindful of starting with either Rafinha or Bamford at the start of the season. I think both are good options, honestly.
I agree. I agree. I think nothing else on somebody
I
we've
think we
not
can
covered.
highlight Ings' conversion rate again over here. You can see he's in a league of his own in the top right over there.
Yep.
So
Already mentioned
that
that.
definitely builds on what we were saying. Mopai is also in a league of his own, a league that nobody wants to be in.
Correct.
Who else I'm just seeing? Wilson's big chance conversion is really high. Antonio's big chance conversion is really good. Cavani, Lacazette, Jesus, they're up there as well.
Which is surprising. Wilson at Bournemouth was usually very sort of profligate. He used to miss a lot of chances.
Yeah,
Very
and
Also,
wasteful.
just one thing worth
One.
mentioning with Wilson is that he tends to start the season really well, almost always. I remember him flying off at the start of the season as well. I remember once, I think Bakar, both of us owned him, sold him, lost patience with him by when he was playing for Bournemouth by game week 2, and then he went on a goal scoring run game week
Hat
3
trick.
onwards.
He got a hat trick against
Yes,
West Ham, which are the game week
and I
one
think
opponents.
yes, most of the FPL crowd lost patience with Wilson, and that's why he's actually very popularly known in our group as Trollson because of what he tends to do. But yeah, I think he's a really good pick. I have 3 West Ham at the moment. I don't really want to lose Antonio, but I'm thinking if I don't want to go so heavy on West Ham, Wilson is in my thoughts, and I have a feeling about him because of the new coach.
Yeah, and his record against West Ham is brilliant. Right. Now, the next table, now what you see over here, big attempts and small attempts. These attempts include chances created. So, big attempts is big chances created as well as big chances of afforded. Similarly, with small attempts. So, I really like this table over here. You see Watkins all the way at the top. It highlights, I mean, if Watkins is going to be out for some time, it just highlights the kind of quality that Ings is also going to receive, right? In terms of chance creation.
No, I
No?
don't think so.
Because of no
Jack
Jack?
Grealish.
Because
No Jack.
yeah, but then you get Bailey, Buendia. It's obviously not to get to that level, but I still
Yeah,
think
I know, but also I think like you're relying on. I mean, I just think expectations need to be tempered a little, because if you were telling me that after 6-7 weeks after the team has settled and he gets this kind of service, I can maybe
yeah, that's fair.
understand that. But it's a new team, and we want Ings to come through in the first 3 fixtures alone. So I think what we're relying on is Ings' finishing ability more than anything else. And assuming that that Aston Villa are sort of a middling team, but if you're expecting him to get the same kind of service that he was getting last season, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, seeing Werner there right at the top with small attempts, big attempts.
Yeah, he's turned into a little bit of an assist machine as well. He's making
Yeah.
so many chances for your team as well. Very
So,
useful
yeah,
player.
that's why he's on the top right, like, because his expected
Yeah,
data for both is really good.
yeah. This data also really highlights Bamford's usefulness because his chance creation as well as shot making is right up there.
Correct. Right. Anything else to move on to, or should we move on to Lukaku?
We can move on to
Just
Lukaku,
a
your boy.
just a reminder that we see Jimenez not featuring obviously because he didn't play last season, but I think
Correct.
he's going to do well this
Good
season,
shout.
and he's one of those who historically was he used to do really well in terms of chances created. So I'm sure if he was playing, he'd be right up there
Who
in
are we
this
talking about?
table, in this
Jimenez.
chart. Jimenez,
Yeah, of course.
Jimenez,
Jimenez is
yeah.
going to be great game week 4 onwards. He's going to be a part of
His
the template.
assist potential was always very underrated.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was
Yep.
always there. Him and Firmino, chances created, they were always like at the top of the table. I think the year
Right
before
up there,
that.
yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
So, so,
Agreed.
so Lukaku, I feel like doing the Rio Ferdinand hand rub. I see him like his numbers from Syria last season are so insane. And you see this graphic here with Sky Sports. He played with Martinez last year, and I think there could be a partnership here building with Havertz, which I'm very interested about. I wonder who's going to be his preferred partner, whether it'll be Havertz or Werner. I think the former. But he absolutely dominated every stat for Inter, who were the champions last year. 21 goals, 81 shots, assists, chances created, dribbles. I'm so excited about him coming to the Prem. And Bakar, you also have a tweet for us. Why don't you read this?
Yeah, for sure. So since Thomas Tuchel took over Chelsea, Chelsea were ranked second for XG. I mean, when we talk about Chelsea under Tuchel, we've been sort of under the impression, and the common perception is the consensus seems to be that he's a defense-first manager. But his numbers in the Premier League have been great in terms of attacking statistics as well. When you look at the numbers, Chelsea are second for XG. You look at 38.1 expected goals for Chelsea since ever since he's become manager. What the actual stat is that stood out for me, which isn't mentioned here, is that they scored just 25 from these 38 expected goals. Now, a large part of that is down to Werner and his wastefulness, I'd imagine. But now that
Lack of
Chelsea are signing a
confidence, we'll
striker,
call it.
okay, you can call it that. Okay, if you don't want to blame it on him, but I mean, when if Chelsea are to sign a striker who's as lethal as Lukaku, he's gonna put those chances away more often than not, and he's gonna be a serious option when the fixtures get better for Chelsea after game week 6.
What price would you guys think he's a no-brainer, as you say, Bakar?
I mean, if he's 11, he's in my team. Not right now, but at that later point. But I don't think he'd be. I can't see him being 12 or
No,
more than
not
12.
12.
Probably somewhere between 11.5, 11.5. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was just a very frustrating player when he was playing for us. But I also think we didn't utilize him well enough, and he's a completely different player compared to the guy that was playing for Man United. I mean, you just need to take a look of his picture when he was playing for Man United. He just looks a lot more bulky and heavier, and now he just looks like toned, so much muscle mass and all of that happening. I mean, just something surprising that I read where there was some digestive issues with him when he was United as well, and we fed him the wrong food, and all of that has changed under Antonio Conte as well. So just a lot of mismanagement he was playing as United. I think he's going to shake up the template, and I think this is one of the reasons why I just taking macro. I think it's very important to focus on team value now, because at some point you will want to have 3 premium big hitters because there's a lot of them in the game at the moment. And I think this season, given the number of big hitters we have, I think first 10 game weeks you go early on your transfers and go for team value. You don't go against team value this season.
Yeah. I think it would be unfair to price him over 11. Our other more priciest asset, Werner, is at 9. 10.5 would probably be underpriced, but I think 11 would be pretty fair both ways.
Is he going to have pens? I think
so, because last season Tuchel had made a comment about how he likes his
I think
strikers
he's
to have
very likely
penalties.
to.
Yeah, because that is one thing. Because again, he will be in the bracket with Mane as the only premium guy in that price bracket without penalties, and you want penalties at that price point.
Correct. Anything else on Lukaku?
Nope. Are we talking about Ivan Toney before we wrap up with strikers?
I mean, let's talk about him when we talk about the friendlies. Just when we get to Brentford's friendly, he didn't actually take part in it. We can talk a bit about Toney.
Right.
And the thing is, we covered Toney extensively in the promoted team spot also, right? There's going to be a lot of repetition.
Correct. Cool.
We can probably put out a highlight reel on Brentford, something like that, so people
All
can be
right.
brought
I
up to
mean,
speed
I
again.
mean, long story short, we all of us highly rate him as a striker. He's playing for an attacking team, great stats in the championship, great price, good enabler. In short,
Correct.
Yeah. Also, just one thing that I really like about Ivan Toney is I've been reading his articles, and he's just very confident and very bullish in uh, as a person when he's talking about his ability. And I actually really like that in a striker. When somebody's backing himself to that extent, I just generally like that attitude because you need that confidence when you're in front of the goal. And just another stat that I read where he stands out compared to his compatriots who moved into the league is that he was third in the second half of goal attempts and shots in the box, but a goal conversion rate of 23% was very important because that was higher than what Patrick Bamford had, Mitrovic had, and Pukki had in their seasons in the championship. So that is something worth monitoring. That he doesn't waste too many of his chances. He's got a good conversion rate.
Correct. And lots of source to points. He takes free kicks. He set
another
set
thing. Did you
pieces.
did you guys have a look at Thomas Frank's interview in the friendly when he was specifically asked? He was specifically asked, and to quote the questioner, he asked whether Tony will be available for the 2.5 million fantasy managers who are looking to buy him, and he said that there's nothing in the world which can stop him from being available on Friday, which was very exciting to hear.
Yeah.
It was
I,
refreshing to see a manager being so open about the lineup.
Yeah. And I like that they let him know right now, bro, there's 2.5 million people who are going to be banking on every week. Keep giving us Tony updates regularly.
Exactly.
Right.
Uh,
So we have
so
the
Nihal in the
preseason.
chat is asking if you're worried about Tony's injury. I don't think so. I think
No,
he's
it
going
was
to
a
be
it
playing.
was a minor neck injury. It wasn't really a major muscle injury like a hamstring or a groin where you'd worry about. So and the thing is he doesn't really need preseason training with the team. He's already well bedded
Correct.
in. So I don't really think it's an issue unless we get some further news, of course.
And and it's worth reiterating Tom Freeman's point that something that he keeps saying is that when it comes to these promoted teams, they all really have a momentum going, and it's the first time they're going to be playing in the league in front of their crowds. The adrenaline and the rush and all of that that's going to be happening at that point is just on the next level. So he's always said that he likes backing promoted team and championship players in the first 4 or 5, 6 game weeks while they're riding this high.
I totally agree with that. So we have the
Yeah.
preseason results up from the weekend. First up is United Everton. Why don't you walk us through this, LR?
Yeah. So this and I saw the full game, and I just going to talk about a few key points here. I was really worried about Bruno's contribution as an asset because there's a lot of talk about United moving to a 4-3-3, and I thought he would be in a slightly withdrawn role. We were playing a 4-3-3, but it was more like a tweak to a 4-2-3-1. Bruno, what happens with Toney or Greenwood, who were playing as a strikers? Marshall was playing as a striker in the first half, and Greenwood in the second half. They tend to drift a lot, and when they tend to drift, Bruno occupies a lot of spaces in the center near the goal, and he was just looking very sharp. And I was thinking that he's not played in front of the crowds for more than 3 or 4 games in the last year and a half. He's the kind of player who's going to absolutely love it. Given the fixtures, I think I was contemplating going without Bruno, but watching that game, watching his performance, I'm going in with Bruno and then seeing what happens. Outside of that, Shaw was delivered a cross for a Maguire header as well, which is showing that we've had a new set piece coach and some of that is working. Nothing really to mention outside of that. A lot
Everton.
of questions coming
About Everton.
with the they had 70 we had 70-75% of the possession, at least the way it looked, and I think they're going to suffer without their main players, Richarlison and DCL. So we need to monitor what that is looking like come Friday from the.
Just see, guys, if the stream is active again.
Yes, we are back. We're good.
Can everyone see us? Everyone hear us? I just want to make sure.
Yep. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly type that we're back again so that people who dropped out back again live. All right, cool. Zoph, you can talk about the next game.
Cool. The next game, I think Newcastle Norwich. I didn't watch it, but Newcastle won quite comprehensively. ASM came on in the second half and was quite useful. Burnley, not very effective.
No. Before we move on, there's one thing I want to mention, and I think it's quite important as a macro point is talking about Norwich. So they've had a lot of problems in preseason with regards to COVID and whatnot. And what even stood out is even Cantwell had a little bit of a knock and he's a doubt for game week 1. So a lot of problems with that Norwich team, which makes me think, and that's a talking point at the moment with regards to whether you want to go for a Simicas or a Diogo Jota or a Mane for the third Liverpool spot. And I just feel like there are goals for the taking when it comes to that Liverpool attack, which is why currently, as things stand, I'm leaning towards Jota against Simicas because of what Norwich's condition is like at the moment.
Yeah, Norwich, I think that we saw some quotes from the manager where he said pretty much until the international break, they're just going to have to ride it out.
Yeah, which is why I think let's talk about it because we can like freestyle now. We don't really have stats to showcase. But I think it might be even important to have a City spot or a plan for a City attacker in Game Week 2 because that game could be carnage. So if you can predict who's going to be starting, that's one of the reasons I have a doubt with regards to Mahrez versus Ings in that spot. And because I like that fixture of Man City versus Norwich at home Game Week 2. Bakar, what do you think? Are you going in with a City player at the moment?
I don't have any of them in my draft right now, but I think I will most probably have Mares in my team before the deadline, and that's precisely the reason that you just mentioned that City versus Norwich fixture in game week 2 is just simply too good to pass up. There's also another guy, John Stones. I'm considering very very seriously for my draft.
I think we lost Bakar on audio.
No, I can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. I lost you for a second there. Just repeat what you said about
go on.
Stones.
Yeah. So I was saying about Stones that I don't see him in a lot of drafts at the minute, but I think he at 5.5 he offers exceptional value. I firmly believe that he's first choice for City. There are rumors of Laporte leaving. I don't think he's gonna start game week 1 because he isn't back in training yet. But I read on the Athletic that he's supposed to be back by the 9th, so I'm expecting him to be back in a day or two. And if he's had like 10 days of 10 days of training before Norwich, he's going to be starting. And City in the first 6 game weeks have the best combined odds for clean sheets. So at 5.5, I really like Stones, and particularly if Robertson looks like being out for a while, I can perhaps get their left back at 4 million and invest in Stones, um, and have cover for him in the form of the Liverpool fullback. That's something I'm looking at personally with my team.
But if you're looking for cover against a Norwich City that is depleted, wouldn't you want the attackers playing against Norwich City, not the defenders?
I mean, I have Jota in my draft at the moment, and I did put a tweet out yesterday that anyone who does not have Jota in the draft is playing it
Yeah,
wrong,
I
quote
know. But
unquote.
at the moment, which way are you leaning when it comes to Jota versus Simicas for the third pool spot?
Um, it depends on the severity of the injury. Honestly, it depends on the severity of the injury. If Robertson is out for anything more than like like a month, then I think Simicas is probably the better option. If he's out for like a couple of weeks, then it's probably worth starting with Jota, honestly, because
Yeah.
then
Also,
that
just
because the problem then you face is that you'd probably get locked out of a third Liverpool slot later on when you need to invest, because Simicas is going to be dead as an asset after 2 weeks, assuming that Robertson is out only for the short term.
Screams of steer.
yeah. What do you reckon, Zoph? Which
I mean,
side
the only
of the
difference is that
debate are you on?
we'll have a wild card to fall upon in game week 6 or 7, which I'm planning to do anyways.
I mean, have you
So
ever
that's
seen
the counter argument.
Simicas start even 2 or 3 games in succession without getting injured?
No, I haven't, because Robertson.
Correct,
Because
but
Robertson has always been
it's
fit.
a lot of faith to put him. He could have one bad game and you see Milner there again.
It's not a lot of faith off. I mean, so what I've been reading, and
There
I
are a
was
couple of
very
factors here.
against the idea at the start, but I've spoken to a few Liverpool fans, and he's apparently been really, really, really good in preseason. And he had some COVID problems and all of that happening last year, so they do rate him as a player. In fact, they were expecting him to get a lot of game time this season and get some minutes off Robbo because he's been good in preseason. So I don't think it's a bad punt. I just want Liverpool attackers against Norwich is my
Precisely.
thinking. That's all.
I don't think you should mess around with your Liverpool slots at all because they have the best fixtures. They're one of the best. You pick the best 3 assets you can.
I don't think it's a bad pick though. I mean, if you get a gift like and he's very an attacking Liverpool fullback at 4 million, it's a good pick. I just prefer the attacker. That's
Same. I think that's pretty much where I am as well. Let's not talk
Yeah.
much about Burnley Caddies. We can skip that. Sorry,
Just a
All right.
second, Zoph.
Mm,
More on this discussion.
go ahead.
Simicast and Robo. I have 2 or 3 points to make. The first point is that you mentioned that Simicast hasn't played 2 or 3 games in succession. Well, Robertson, over the past 3 seasons, he's missed just 3 Premier League games. So he's just been incredibly consistent in terms of starts. So there hasn't been much opportunity for Klopp to sort of try and test out someone else. Anyways, number one. Number two is the fact that I'm not sure whether you heard Trent's interview yesterday, where he sort of mentioned, I'm quoting this article from Liverpool Echo, where he was speaking on Beck's performance. Beck was the guy who came on for Robertson, and he was saying Beck has obviously got Robertson and Simicast ahead of him as the left back at the moment. So that is Trent did admit. I know Trent's not the manager, but he did sort of refer to the fact that Simicast will probably be ahead of him in the
It is
pecking order.
definitely. It's not even a
That's
probably.
not even a doubt.
Simicast is.
Point two, yeah. Point two,
It's not-
your
Yeah.
point one is relevant. Point two, I don't think makes any. But go on.
And the third point is that James Pearce on the Athletic very recently mentioned that Simicast has had a very, very good preseason, and in case there's an injury at left back, he can see him coming in. And James Pearce with Liverpool is very, very authentic.
Yeah.
So this is why I like the option of Simicast.
Yeah. So why I am also thinking about it, and I think it's a discussion worth having because it's a big talking point as well at the moment.
For sure.
Liverpool's first 2 fixtures are Norwich and Burnley. Game week 3 they have Chelsea at home, and game week 4 they have Leeds away. I don't want a Liverpool defensive double up in these games. That is my thinking at the moment. I don't mind an attacker.
3 and 4. Yeah,
against the
3 and
serve.
4, you don't want the double up. But
I
again,
don't want a
but you
Liverpool
can bench the 4.0 guy, na?
You can bench the 4.0 guy, but it's about where do you want a Liverpool spot also. So I think there's a legit argument for both, but I just wanted to mention that game week 3 and 4, you're not going to be doubling up on those Liverpool defenders either.
So there's a plus. You can probably bench him then. Should we move? Anything Liverpool? Are we done?
Nope, we're done. Jota look really, really good, and it's worth mentioning.
so. I think there's much to
that I'm not worried too much about his rotation threat at the moment. I'm
some
very
peak-
bullish on him starting the first 2 games, and I think if at all Firmino is playing, he's going to be playing the third game. But I'm thinking he's going to be playing the first 2 at the moment.
Yeah. Right. West Ham, Atalanta. I thought West Ham looked very good. Very solid defensively, very compact. They didn't really give Atlanta much of a sniff. All the service were directed towards Antonio, but I think the man we really need to talk about here is Ben Rama. He was absolutely electric. He hit the crossbar. He had lots of chances. He was playing just off the striker. And he really occupied the roles very similar to what Lingard was playing last year. And I think unless they sign somebody who's a ready-made replacement or they sign Lingard himself, I think Ben Rama is pretty safe in that number 10 role. Your thoughts, guys?
Yep. He's in my team at the moment, and I'm very happy with that punt as well because I like the fixtures at the start of the season. I like him as a pick. I like the price point because if Willock is shining, we can move into Willock. There are a few 5.5 million assets as well. And one thing that stood out to me is that it's just not been one game. He's been their best player all preseason. And there was an interview that I read on The Athletic as well, where he spoke about how he's bulked up in off-season. And he's also talking about how he's worked on his decision-making a lot as well. Because Moyes isn't going to play somebody who's very maverick in the decision making and is very selfish. He had poor performances last season when he came on the pitch because of his decision making. I think he's worked on that also because he's mentioned that a couple of times in his interviews.
Makes sense. Anything to add on West Ham?
Talk about Soufal. You wanted to talk about?
Soufal was so attacking. I think he got more penalty box touches, I think, than any of the wingers. Very attacking, very accurate, and he took a fair share of set pieces as well. So
Yeah.
worth
Just
monitoring.
one thing I wanted to add is something our friend FPL Lions Luke mentioned is that last season in 50% of the games he played as wing back, and when he was playing as wing back, when West Ham do play 3 at the back, he was pretty much like a winger. So at the moment I have 2 4.5 defenders in my team. I'm trying to find 0.5 million and get Soufal into my team. I think he's a good pick.
Right. Anything to add on West Ham, Bakar, or should we move on to Spurs? I don't think Bakar can hear us again. I think Bakar's having some tech issues at his. I have to change his audio. It keeps changing back to his speakers instead of his Bluetooth.
All right.
You can probably hear me now.
I'll talk about Spurs Arsenal
Yes,
while you
go
do
for
that. Okay, so I managed to see this game as well. Not much to report from this game except Son and Dele Dele in the previous preseason games was playing a little deeper. In this game, he was just playing right off the 10. Him and Son were pretty much playing as strikers and having an interchanging role. So both very, very attacking at the moment. And we know with Son that if he's on the pitch and if he gets a chance, he's one of the most elite finishers in the league. From an Arsenal point of view, I think they got slowly into the game, but I thought it was a decent defensive performance from them. I was quite impressed with how Ben White played in that game versus Spurs. Nothing else to add.
Ali hit the post twice. I think that's
Ali
what.
hit the post twice. Yeah, and Rex was taking a lot of good positions as well.
Yeah, yeah. He was much
in
more
that game.
advanced because I've noticed with the Nuno's systems, one fullback is always more advanced than the other. I think in this case, it might be Reguilon, maybe because he played Tanganga, Jaffet on the other side rather than Doherty.
Yeah.
But Reguilon was
Yeah.
definitely the more attacking of the two fullbacks.
Yeah. He's got a little bit of a goal scoring knack about him. He gets into these goal scoring positions, just something to monitor.
We're talking about that one shot he got on the counter, right? Especially.
Yeah, and that happens once a game. Whenever he's playing, whenever I've seen Spurs play, he tends to get into that position.
Yeah. Now,
Yep.
Villa, I think Bakar, you saw the Villa game, right? You saw at least saw highlights of it. Can you still not
Bakar,
hear?
can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I can't hear Zoph.
Go ahead, Alad. You
Okay,
can
you
talk into
can.
it.
Okay, so I want to check actually if the stream can hear. I'll talk about it, Zoff, while you can change the settings
Yeah.
at your end. What happened in Aston Villa Salernitana? I don't know how to pronounce that team, but I just saw the highlights before we came on, and Ings just look really sharp. He looks like he's had a preseason, and it made me immediately want Ings in my team at the moment. So I'm battling with a decision. Watkins has a little bit of a knock. We don't know how his injury is looking at the moment, but one to monitor. And Bundia also has a knock. We don't know what his injury is looking like at the moment, so we need to wait for Dean Smith's press conference to know who's going to be playing and who's going to be not. But Danny Ings looks sharp. That's all I have to say from that game.
Yeah. I think all of the main takeaway is we're all waiting to see where Watkins, whether he comes back. And also, it's worth mentioning that they played I think 4-4-2 with Watkins
Correct.
and Ings up top rather than Watkins out wide as we thought.
Correct. Bakar, anything to add when it comes to Aston Villa? The stream can hear you, so you can go for it.
Not really. I mean, Ings is the one who stood out for me. I watched the majority of the game. I don't personally think it's worth investing in Villa's defense uh, because of the fact that they've been inflated in terms of their prices this year. So I wouldn't want to be spending a transfer on a Villa defender to begin with. And I think there are better options than Martinez for a million cheaper, or even Meslier for the season. I think Meslier for a point 0.5 less can come close over the season in terms of matching Martinez. So I mean that's my take. It's basically Ings or no one personally for me.
All right.
I agree.
Brighton, Getafe. I saw the game. What stood out to me is that Dunk and Webster are fit and played this game, which was very important for us looking at that Brighton defense. But again, what happened is they conceded a ton of set piece goals last season, and they conceded 2 set piece goals in this game as well, which is something worth noting. Veltman played in a back three with Webster and Dunk. What I also noticed is that 6 million midfielder that Brighton have, Mwepu is how I'm going to pronounce it. He looked really, really sharp and bright again. So that's all I have to report from that game. Anything to add, guys?
Didn't watch any of it. I'm just
Nothing really.
worried.
I mean, I just want to speak about Weltman as a 4.5 option. I think he's in isolation. He's the best 4.5 option to begin with, in my opinion. Brighton's fixtures are really nice. I see a lot of people asking whether it's worth doubling up with Sanchez to begin with. I personally don't mind because even as a centre back, I looked at his numbers, and his bonus potential was right up there because the pass completion, given how Brighton set up and how they play, they pass it among the centre backs very with a lot of accuracy, which is great for bonus. So Weltman tends to do well for bonus whenever Brighton are to keep a clean sheet, so he can get some share of the bonus. And I look at each pick in isolation. I don't personally mind doubling up with the fixtures they have, particularly in game week 2 and 3. Their fixtures are very strong. I think I'd bag them for a clean sheet against Watford and even against Everton in game week 3, given how strong they are at home.
I'm in the market possibly for a 4.5. So I like that piece of information. You prefer him to Webster, Bakar?
I think so. Yeah, I looked at the numbers and he was better for bonus points accumulated per minute, PPS accumulated per minute as well.
All right. Moving on to Crystal Palace, Watford. From what I've read, Palace have had a really good preseason. They've been unbeaten. Unfortunately, they have really poor fixtures at the start of the season, so it's a wait and watch there. But a note to Buckman owners: in the three games that Watford have played against Premier League opposition, they have conceded 10 goals. So they look really leaky. They've had a staggered sort of a preseason. So just a note of caution that they've conceded 10 goals in three games against Premier League opposition.
Yep.
Anything to add?
One thing to mention about Watford is they played a 4-4-2 with two strikers. They didn't play the 4-3-3, which really benefited Sar at the end of last season. And the thing is, now you look at the forwards, they have like 10 forwards on their books. So it might be a system we see him use more often with so many forwards at his disposal. And Sar barely got in the box. He had a few crosses. Definitely not in threatening enough positions to make him an FPL asset if they're going to play this 4-4-2 system.
All right. Villarreal Leeds, same old from Leeds, looked a little shaky at the back, but worth noting that Calvin Phillips did get finally 45 minutes in the second half against Villarreal. That's something worth mentioning. Anything to add, boys? Bakar?
Nothing really. I didn't watch this game, so I'd rather not comment
Yeah,
on it.
both the Leeds goals
Yeah.
were a result of set piece situations. One was when the ball was cleared outside, Click scored from outside the box, and the other one was, I think, a Dallas corner which Cooper hit on the crossbar and Bamford hit the volley. So neither of these goals were open play goals for Leeds. Worth mentioning that they didn't really create that much from open play.
Yep. And also Rafinha's chance involvement wasn't very high. A lot of the play came in from the left-hand side rather than the right-hand side is something I noticed as well while watching the highlights. Leicester, Man City, I think all of us saw the Community Shield. For those that are downplaying Man City massively after this game, I think their gap in quality when you're going to replace two 18-year-olds with two world-class players is going to be very, very significant. So I just want to say that you write them off at your own cost. And Harvey Barnes looks fit, ready. He got 10 returns in his last 11 games before he got an injury. He looks like a really, really good under the radar pick at the moment.
If he's good to start, he's always been a good asset. But what worries me is the fact that he's just coming back from injury. Maybe early subs with Nacho. That is something which worries me. But
I'm
he's
not too
looked
worried
great in
about it.
preseason.
I was scouring through the Leicester forums as well. They think he's their best player, period. And they think, and even something Rogers spoke about how when Barnes is in their team, he takes Leicester City to another level. Zoph, you're considering him, Barnes, as an option at the moment. What's your thinking?
I think primarily it's the fixture play, right? You see the first one with Wolves. Wolves play a very high line. You'd expect Barnes to be the main outlet on the counter against Wolves. West Ham's defense at home, I don't really rate very highly in terms of like solidity. I think they could probably concede a couple against Leicester. And then you have Norwich in game week 3, which is Norwich's second home game. They'll probably be a bit more open in that home game because against Liverpool, you'd imagine them to be a little bit more defensive. So the second home game, they'd probably come at Leicester a little bit. So I think Barnes is a decent option for the first few weeks.
Yeah, and they've got a good enough fixtures right until game week 10.
I think game week 4 is Man City. After that, let's just have a quick look at the fixtures. I'll bring it up here. So the fixtures, what do they have with our Leicester?
So after Man City, they have Brighton away, Burnley at home, Palace away, United at home, Brentford away, and Arsenal at home. So it's not too bad. I mean, I think he's a good stick and forget option and a good option to start the season with for sure.
Only thing is with Europa League, do you think there might be rotation later on?
Possibly, given the squad depth that Mr. Broj has at the moment. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think Liverpool we've covered in detail. There's no need to really repeat.
Yep.
Jota looked good, Mane looked good, Trent looked good, Salah looked good, Liverpool looked good.
Yeah. Yes. Southampton, we don't really need to talk about at the start of the season. Livramento 4.0 million defender with good potential because he apparently has a lot of talent, and if he overtakes and makes that wing back position his, it's a decent 4.0 option at the moment.
Bakar, can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Okay, that aspect is fixed now. Hopefully, no more issues. Sorry, Ella, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to talk about 4.0 options. Amati, how long do you guys think? I think he's okay for the first 2 or 3 game weeks. You need to monitor Leicester's transfer activity because if they're buying a CB, then Amati is not going to be playing. So it's a very short
They're
lived.
definitely buying a CB. They can't survive a Europa League and Premier League season with Fofana who's injured, Evans who's going to be injured most of the time, and Soyuncu.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
Soyuncu
sure. I
at
mean,
Brentford.
Marty's good for game week 1, but after that, I don't see him lasting long.
Correct, correct. There was a little bit of a talk about the 4 million Wolves defender also being an option, but Hover, I think his name is. But that
Yep.
what stood out to me was that Semedo was injured and not even injured. He had, I think, somebody around him had COVID or something, and he was making sure that he's being safe and he looks likely to play game week 1. So, not an option in my opinion at the moment.
I just saw a comment from Paras in the chat. I can't help myself. How does Chris Wood sign into his account? Bakar, can you guess?
No.
He logs in. Right
Yeah,
now,
Zoph couldn't.
let's talk about the game week 1 fixtures. Game week 1 is finally coming around the corner.
Yeah. Let's do a bit of prediction. Brentford, Arsenal, Bakar. How do you see that going?
Um, I think Brentford will score, but I can see an Arsenal win. I think it's going to be 2-1. I think Brentford will score though with the fans behind them, opening fixture of the Premier League. Um, I think this will be a good game to watch.
I think so too.
Could be high scoring. Could
And
be high
because
scoring.
Arsenal look a bit ropey, right? I think without Amate, they're significantly worse. And Pablo Mari
Without
is a
Partey,
without.
you mean?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Partey, not Amate. Sorry, Partey, and also Pablo Mari is a calamity waiting to happen at centre back. He's never
What
Apparently
impressed
rating
their
me.
is
attack
it?
hasn't
Yeah?
good. Apparently their attack hasn't looked that great either in recent weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't clicked as much as I expected it to. So yeah, I'm expecting maybe a score draw in that game,
1-1, something like that.
something like that. A couple of goals maybe from Brentford won't surprise me.
Right. Now the
Yeah.
curtain with at
Yeah,
Old Trafford. I love that you guys have Leeds rocking up first game with the whole
yeah, yeah.
rivalry.
Very, very nervous for that game. But watching Sancho's training pictures today had me right excited
You think he
for
might start?
Saturday.
We were having this discussion before we came on. You actually think he might start? I don't think so.
I don't know. Let's just say I won't be surprised if he starts because what's happened with marquee signings and Solskjaer, he just doesn't wait any. He doesn't wait for, even for a second before throwing them in. But we were talking and you were saying that he would be a great option to get off the bench as well. So yeah, I think it's just going to be an exciting game. I'm not as confident as I should be, but I'm never confident for any game week 1 game. So I'm not going to make any predictions. But I'm just excited for it. Why don't you guys talk about how you all see this game playing out?
3-1 United. To me, that's what I think it's
Nice.
going to
You're
be.
Yeah, I think
bullish.
both teams will score. I think Leeds will score. I'd probably go with the 2-1 United.
All right. Question are Brighton going to keep a clean sheet against Burnley?
No, no, I don't think so. It's Brighton.
Yeah, set piece goal, Chris Wood header. That's happening, right? Like we all know that's happening, and it's probably going to happen in the 85th minute so
I
that
I,
all of FPL gets trolled.
I generally don't expect Brighton to keep a clean sheet. I remember them in the reverse fixture last season, and they really struggled. Burnley were all over them. I think this will be a one all draw
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, that's what it screams of.
Chelsea versus Crystal Palace. Zoff, how do you see this game shaping up?
No, it's
What's
an
the scene? Who's going to be starting at Chelsea?
that's an interesting one because we didn't play this weekend. We had the Super Cup game on Wednesday, and from what I have read, the likes of Chilwell, James Mount, basically the entire international contingent, the England boys, none of them are going to play either the Super Cup game or game week 1. So that raises my concerns. I don't think this is going to be the tonking that I envisaged when the fixtures first came out. I don't think it's going to be anything more than like a 2-0 type of game.
All right, you being less bullish because I do have one spot open. And I'm
2-0 is my
considering
favorite
a Kai
scoreline.
Havertz.
2-0 is my favorite
Yeah.
scoreline. I'm happy with that.
What do you want to say to people considering Kai Havertz as an option for the first 2 games against Palace and Arsenal?
I think there are better options out there. But I don't think he's a bad option, and I hope he'll be the one partnering Lukaku rather than Timo, because you don't think that Mount would be the thing is, I think he might even change formation when Lukaku comes
Yeah.
around to get the best out of him. So it just seems like a risk too far.
Agreed. I think you need to play Werner in your team irrespective because he's the one out of the three that is actually a genuine pacey winger that stretches the
Exactly.
opposition.
No, exactly. The
He does a
operations
lot
can't
of the
really
work.
press up because of Werner. They're afraid that Werner's always going to make that run in behind. If you don't play Werner, you take out a large part of Chelsea's game plan in that extent.
No, exactly. And I do agree he might need to change formation. Even Hakim Ziyech has been pretty good in
Yeah.
preseason.
I'm glad
Unfortunately,
I'm
not sure
glad you
about
brought
game
that
two.
up. A few people have asked me about that Ziyech has been scoring goals for fun, but still, he's like one bad game away from being dropped. He's going to be rotated. Not an option really in my book.
All right. And what do you want to say to those looking at Ben Chilwell at the moment?
I don't think he's going to be available game week 1. There's some doubts regarding
Yeah.
that. So I wouldn't go there. And then you look at the fixtures. The problem is I think we play Man City and Liverpool in our first 6 as well as Arsenal and Spurs. Well, I think there are better options with those fixtures.
Exactly. And even Villa at home isn't,
Yeah, because with
the
Ings,
best fixture
and
you can
like
have.
by then you'd hope they'll be a little bit more
Exactly.
settled, bedded in.
And and Ings scored both home and away last season against Chelsea. He tends to do well against them.
Yeah, he good as well against the bigger clubs. He's a big game player. So I wouldn't put it past him scoring. Now, Everton, Southampton, very difficult to call. This would go because both teams have looked shaky during preseason. Southampton have lost Ings, but they're buying Adam Armstrong, who's been sought
From
by
Blackburn.
from Blackburn. A lot of clubs have been in for him. I think before we came on, we saw FPL Irons post a stat about the number of shots. No player took more shots in the championship than Adam Armstrong. So he should be a fun player to watch. I don't think he'll be thrown in game week 1 right away. But what do you think this? How do you think this game is going to play?
Ward Prowse isn't available as well, right?
Ward Prowse isn't
Oh,
available either.
is available as well. Yeah, I see a 1-0 win for Everton in this game.
The Rafa
Steady
special.
Benitez performance and a 1-0 win is
I
how I see
completely
it.
agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
Rafa special.
Yeah.
Leicester
Low
Wolves.
scoring game this for me.
Leicester Wolves is something I'm really interested in at both ends of the pitch. Either of you guys plan to play Amati in this one?
If I'm keeping him in my team, yeah, it's an option worth
I mean, I have
playing.
him in my draft at the moment, but
Yeah,
I
most
don't
of
know.
us do, but are we going to play him? That's
Leicester,
the question I
surprisingly,
wanted.
they have the.
Are you going to play him?
I mean, I was looking at the bookies odds, and the bookies think at the moment I am, yes, and he is in my draft at the minute, so I am playing him primarily because the bookies rate Leicester as being the second most likely team to keep a clean sheet after Chelsea this week. Their odds are really good for a clean sheet. I mean, they're probably sort of still underestimating Wolves, and they still think this is the Wolves of old, which is what
Correct.
bothers me, because everything I've read about Wolves this season makes me wonder whether they'll be a completely transformed side, and this. I mean, there will be no better occasion to do it than on the opening day of the season. So I mean, I won't be completely surprised if Wolves score, but at the moment I am playing him. I think it's gonna be like probably 2-1 to Leicester. That's what I would predict if I was calling it.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game in which Leicester score 3 or 4 goals because they look really sharp in that Community Shield game as well. And Wolves' high line and their new system, I think their players are going to take a while to adapt to that. What was interesting was they played 3 at the back in the previous game. So I wonder whether Lage goes with 3 at the back or 2 at the back in this game. But I have a feeling this could be a high-scoring game, and that's why I'm thinking about Barnes. I want a piece of that Leicester attack because of this game. I think Wolves are a team to target early on.
Correct. Because they might be a bit naive early on. They might change up
Correct.
this high line a bit later. But the thing is, this seems to be an opening day fixture for the last few years now. And every single time, I think it's been 0-0 so far. But under Nuno, of course.
I
It's a
remember
Nuno team.
owning.
It's Nuno, yeah, exactly.
I remember owning Jimenez and Barnes. I think in this fixture last season.
Yeah, it seems to
It
pop up
was a
game
good
week 1
experience.
quite often. Watford, Villa.
Yeah.
Wait. Before we move
ahead.
on, a lot of questions came in for Ricardo Pereira. Ricky P. He's been playing in a very advanced position. What do you guys think about him?
Castagna is fit.
I wouldn't recommend going there. Yeah, he is.
Close to
He
being
is.
fit,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so again with I guess maybe short term if anything, but once the Europa League comes around, it's a rotation area.
With so many injuries in the defense, I don't think I mean, I don't think I would
You want
want
to
to
spend
be
that much,
spending
right? Yeah, you're okay spending 4.0 for
exactly.
Amati, but paying premium prices for the Leicester defense.
Exactly. That's
I
what I'm
concur.
saying. Exactly.
I concur.
All right.
Watford.
Watford, Aston Villa. Actually, thinking about Danny Ings, that stat that I just read out, it is very attractive. Where they talk about Watford conceding 10 goals against 3 Premier League opposition. So Watford have had sort of a staggered preseason. I'm expecting maybe a 2-0 win for Aston Villa in this game.
Ooh, 2-0 win.
2-0.
Interesting.
I,
Yeah,
I personally don't think this game will be too high scoring. I'd probably go with the 1-all.
Yeah, I think a 1-0 is
I do
probably
think
the.
Wings will score though.
Yeah,
can I just say it's just so great that we're doing and talking about fixtures that are happening this week and football's back. It
not
just makes me
not 2 months later, right? Because we've been
yeah,
starting streaming right when the game launched. It feels like
yeah.
it was
It
like
just
what, one
makes
and a
me
half
so
months ago.
happy. I have such a big smile on my face.
Exactly.
Football's here, man. Football's here. Let's go. All
And
right.
games
Now,
at the same time.
oh yeah, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games at the same time on Saturday. A lot of FPL assets being involved
Yeah,
as well. It's
yeah. A
just
lot of like active FPL assets.
Zoff,
Go ahead.
is this pattern expected to continue over the rest of the season?
Yes,
This
yes, because
3 p.m. kickoffs,
fans are back now, so there'll no longer be staggered kickoffs as we saw earlier.
okay, that's nice.
yes. Norwich,
Definitely.
Liverpool. Expecting Liverpool to score 3 goals here. Won't be surprised. That's why one of the
Comfortable with
reasons
Liverpool.
I'm preferring a Jota over a Simicast. Even though Simicast is too good a gift to ignore, I think Norwich's COVID is something I want to think about, and I want a piece. I want a greater piece of the Liverpool attack.
I just saw the attack look so proficient against Bilbao, and Bilbao were a good team. They played very high quality at both ends of the pitch, and the attack, Javi Elliott was so good in midfield.
So good. What a player. What
Very
a
good.
player. A surprise. I was messaging all my Liverpool fans. What is this guy? Such a good player. I thought he was so good on the ball. I think we're going to see a lot of him this season.
Yeah, I think he's going to be very much a part of the first team. There is no way he's getting loaned out. 3-0 Liverpool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm bullish as well on Liverpool, and they and the thing is, the important guys have had a full preseason, and they are one of the few big teams that where United are getting a ton of their players late. City are getting ton of their players late. Chelsea are getting a ton of their players late. That's not the case with Liverpool. A lot of their important players in attack. I mean, Salah, Mane, full preseason. Let's go for it.
Anything to add? Move on.
Nope.
Newcastle,
Yes.
West Ham. Now, this is interesting because I'm a bit torn
No,
about my West
yep.
Ham defender here. Don't you guys think Newcastle score here?
Yeah, I wouldn't be
I'm
surprised
very
to
convinced
see.
they will.
Yeah.
The stats I mentioned at the end of the season, Maximan is back, Wilson is fit. I'm not sure whether Willock will play or not, but I mean, even
I
with
just
those two, I
realized that
think
the
West Ham
game
will
is on
concede
Sunday. It's an
personally.
extra day for Willock to feature into that team. And it's not like he needs to build a team chemistry with that attack, right? He's played with them last season. I'm expecting Willock to play as well. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see Newcastle score in this game. I'm
2-2?
thinking about
It
Wilson
feels
more
like a
than this.
2-2 sort of game, right? This feels like a high scoring game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see high scoring because West Ham always struggle against Newcastle because West Ham like to counter. And Newcastle like, no, we're going to counter.
No, but
So
I don't think
that's
it'll
what
be that
happened.
case this year, though. I think Newcastle this year will attack with fans back. What you're talking about is last year without fans in the stadium. Now with fans back, I think Newcastle will come at them and West Ham will counter.
Got it. Fair enough. I can see it being a high scoring game. Can see.
I think West Ham will win around maybe 3-1. I think West Ham will win.
3 goals. I like it.
Yeah.
Spurs, Man City, will Harry Kane play? Do you think Nuno was being serious or Nuno just playing mind games?
No idea. No idea. How do you even call this? I don't have a read on it at the moment. Don't have a read on it at the moment.
I would love
But
if Kane
I'll
is thrown
say
straight in. I would love it if Kane is thrown straight in. Just a drama, just facing Man City, wanting to move, the fans, the crowd. I just would
It
create
could
a sense of
happen. It
theatre.
could happen.
I think he'll be on the bench, I think, regardless, right? And if he's not starting, if he can walk, he'll be on the bench.
yeah. It also depends on what midfield Spurs play. If Spurs don't play Harry Winks in midfield, I think they're in trouble. He's impressed me in that game against Arsenal as well. I'm expecting City to win this 3-1.
3-1. Interesting.
3-1. Yeah, because I don't know
I
if
personally don't think this will be too high
I don't
scoring.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I
Romero is going to feature,
I'd be
and
surprised if
if he's not going to
it was that
feature, I don't rate the
high
two
scoring.
defenders. I mean, Rodon is good, but I'm not sure about the defenders.
Yeah, I would go 2-0 City personally.
Yeah.
I think 2-1 to City, maybe
Probably.
1-0 to City, something like that.
Pretty much. Now, I think that's it. Should we move on to our drafts?
All right, let's move on to our drafts.
Here we go. LR, you're first up.
Sure.
All right, for the benefit of the listeners, I'm going to read out my team, and I'm going to read out what positions I'm sure about and what positions I'm not so sure about. And as my keeper, I have Sanchez. In defense, I have Shaw, Trent, and this is not my team.
Wait, whose team is this? This is Bakar's
This is
team
my
first?
team. This is my team.
Sorry,
This
I'll
is
bring
my
up.
team. Yeah, that's my team.
I'll go with LR's first. The right. LR, you go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So this is my team. I have Sanchez as keeper. I have Trent, Shaw, and White in defense, considering playing Amati, who's first on my bench at the moment. In midfield, I have Salah, Jota as a double up. I have Mahrez, I have Fernandes, I have Benrahma, who I'm pretty bullish about, and I have Antonio and Toney. The things that I'm thinking about at the moment are if I can maybe downgrade Mahrez to a Kai or go Greenwood plus cash, or maybe Barnes plus cash, and use that cash to upgrade one of my 4.5 million defenders to a Sufal, and maybe upgrade a Toney to an Inks. That's what my thinking is at the moment. These spots are the spots that I'm not sure about. I'm fairly sure about the Salah Jota double up. I'm thinking about Tsimikas being a gift too good to ignore. But the players that are on my mind that are not in my team at the moment, Barnes, Danny Ings, I really want Danny Ings. I think he will be in my game week 1 team. I think those first 3 fixtures are too good to ignore. And I'm thinking about a Mahrez downgrade there. Let's see. I think this is going to be a decision I take after Pep's press conference on Friday.
What would you need to
What do
hear?
you think, guys?
What would you need to hear to tilt you either way?
I don't know, man. I have no idea what my mood is going to be like on Friday. I don't know. This is something I'm going to think about. And our teams are constantly evolving every day as we get new pieces of
Yeah.
information.
I don't think you'll be having Mahrez.
You think I won't be having Mahrez? I'm even looking at Grealish as an option. I have a feeling I was.
I think Grealish
going
is a
through
better
the-
option, longer term especially.
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I think he's. I know that
He
your
can
opinion
start
of Mahrez changed after the.
against. I think he's likely to start as well.
I think so
Yeah, I
too.
was looking at the City forums, and a lot of them have them starting because the 2 other midfielders are going to be Rodri and Gundogan, and the third midfielder slot. Their only 2 options at the moment are Bernardo and Grealish in that spot because KDB and Foden are injured. So it does look very likely that he could potentially start.
Yeah. What about Benrahma? Are you completely sold on him?
Yeah, I like it. What I like about Benrahma and a 6 million punt is I think, and the only other option that I'm considering for that 6 million price bracket is Willock, because I have 3 West Ham. I'm willing to switch one of those 2 attackers to either Antonio to Wilson or Benrahma to Willock. But what I've seen of Benrahma,
3 West Ham?
You have 2 West Ham.
You have 2 West Ham.
West Ham.
Yeah, I'm looking to upgrade one of my 4.5 millions to Sufal, right? It's
Okay.
on my mind. Yeah. So the thing with Benrahma,
As a perma play.
I don't know. I like having one more 4.5 million asset on my bench. So that requires a Mahrez downgrade. That's where I'll go if I want to save cash. But why I like Benrahma is because of the sheer talent that he has. I think his ceiling as a player is very, very high given the talent he has. And I think he's ready for the season. I like him as a pick. And shout out to Hindu Monkey as well. He's very famous for his trains and a little bit of a Twitter bandwagon building, and I'm all on it.
Right. Anything else to add, Bakar? Should we move on?
What do you guys think
I
about
think
my
it's a-
team? Don't move on. Let me know what you guys think about my team.
I think it's a great team.
I think it's too
can't really
safe.
fault it. I think it's very. I think it's balanced.
Yeah, it's a bit too balanced for a
really
late
balanced.
riser team.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
But-
I mean, but let's not make him destroy his draft. It's very, very nice. So
No, I'm not
let
going to
him keep it
destroy
that
it.
way.
He's not
I'm
going
not
to, but
gonna
he asked for
destroy it.
comment. He asked what my comment was. Like,
Because I mean, Jota, Mahrez, Benrahma are still fairly risky. I mean, that's enough though. I
Isn't
think
Jota a
that's more than
no-brainer though?
enough.
Yeah, I'm very, very sure about
Not
Jota
with
and my team.
with the Robertson injury.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just I have to shout out to FPL Salah who spoke about being
Stop filming
fairly
my leg.
safe. with your team at the start of the season. And another thing also that was in my head, I wrote a lot of notes while reading through articles and analyzing what went wrong last season. And every third line is control your instincts at the start of the season. Control your instincts at the start of the season. So Zophar knows I've been thinking about Mane a lot, but I am just controlling my instincts at the start of the season. And Jota makes
I mean,
sense at 7. But
even if you have a late riser, even if you have a gut feel, I mean, 6 million for a punt is perfectly fine. It's not as if you can just switch him around in a week or so's time to someone like
yeah,
Rafinha or Smith Rowe or um, Embo. I mean, he's also a good option 5.5. Someone like that. I mean, there are
yeah,
options at that price.
yeah.
Sar. So I mean, it's okay
Yeah.
if you're punting at that price. It's not a big deal, honestly.
Yeah. And one other thing that is in my mind while we're discussing the team, I want to mention is, yeah, I want Ings in my team, but why I like the Mahrez price point is, let's say Son takes off game week 1. He looks hot. I want him against Wolves game week 2, and it's easier to go to him with a Mahrez in your team. But I really want Ings as well. So that's something I'm playing with, because I'm spending a chunk of my money in Bruno, Salah, and Mahrez. So I like that the funds are congested in there. And I'm wary of spending too much in defense because Lukaku is coming as well.
Correct.
One thing I'd
Yeah.
suggest though, LR, is that if I was in your position, I'd probably pick Weltman over Ailing, because I don't think Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet in any of the first three fixtures, and Brighton's fixtures, especially in game week 2 and 3, are better than those of Ailing's. So that's why I think I would probably go with Weltman, regardless
Thinking
of the
about
fact
it.
whether you have Sanchez.
Not
Yeah,
gonna lie, thinking about it.
and White after game week 4 is a good option anyways. Arsenal have great fixtures from game week 4 onwards, so
Yeah.
I think that's rotation I would go with personally.
Yep. Yep.
I
All
don't
right, move
agree with
on.
that, Bakar,
Next set.
because I just want to speak about this rotation here. You can possibly play with these three defenders, and it's something I'm considering as well. Sorry. You can play Amati game week 1, you get Wolves. You can play Ailing at home against Rafa Benitez in his first away game, which is a decent fixture, I think, at Ellen Road. Game week 3, if Amati plays, you get Norwich away. And then game week 4, you get Ben White, who also plays Norwich.
Yeah, but my assumption is that Amarty would be an option in game week 3. And personally, I think that
Then
Weltman at home to Watford and Everton in game week 2 and 3 is better than Burnley away and better than Everton at home for Leeds, because I back the Brighton defense at home more than I do Leeds when they're playing Everton or when they're playing away from home.
I guess I see your
That's
point
the
at that
counter argument.
aspect. I guess.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess. Fair enough.
Because the way I'm looking at it is that Marte won't be an option from
I'm still
game week 1
optimistic
after game
personally.
week
I
1.
think I still think he's going to play game week 3, because I thought he played really well in the Shield. To really throw him out of the starting lineup for just because you get somebody new is a bit discouraging. When you see a player who's performing well, you'd ideally want to give him a run in the starting lineup. I can understand once the Europa League comes in, you get congestion comes
It
in.
could happen. I mean, don't get me wrong. It could happen, but
correct.
it won't be something I plan on.
Yeah, you always have the backup, like you said, but I think there is a scope
Yeah.
for these three guys to rotate. That was just a point I was making.
Yeah. Also, just want to mention we have 910 people
That's a
in the
record for
chat.
us. Thank you, guys.
Record for us. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank
But
you
we've
guys
got
for
only
watching.
304 likes. 304 likes. Hit likes, guys. It makes
Smash
it
that
easier
like
for us to
Smash
get
the
fun.
like button.
Smash that
button
like
right
button
now.
right now. Get us to 500 likes right now. All right, whose draft do we have next?
My draft's up first. I'll just walk you guys through it. Sanchez and Steele in goal. Trent, Shaw, Sufal in defense. All your attacking defenders. Jota, Fernandez, Rafinha, Salah. Ings, Toney, Antonio up front. White, Amati, and Gilmore on the bench. What do you guys think?
Just really like that team. Really like that team a lot. It seems like a little bit of a Zofar team where it's similar to mine. We're going for similar structures, but where I've gone for a Benrahma and a Mahrez, which are slightly risky picks. You've gone for a Rafinha and an Ings, which are slightly safer in that price bracket. I also like Sufal. I'm jealous of you having Sufal. I want Sufal.
That's interesting,
But
because Sufal is the one player that's possibly on the chopping block for me.
Barnes, Rafinha to Barnes is what you're
Rafinha
thinking
to
about?
Barnes is what I'm thinking of, and I'll explain why, right? Let's have a look at the fixtures again really quickly to West Ham. We'll come back to this again. So West Ham, you have opening fixture away to Newcastle. Not very great clean sheet potential over there. We just discussed we expect Newcastle to score. Then you have Leicester, who looked quite sharp. could score. Palace, I would say decent potential. Game week 3. Game week 4, Southampton. I think they play Southampton away. You could possibly cover that with Ben White
Yep.
if you have to. When they Arsenal have Norwich. And then game week 5, you have Man United. Game week 6, you have Leeds. How many clean sheets do you see for West Ham in the first
Yeah.
6?
Zoph
I
confirmation
completely agree.
bias.
They're
In the first
No.
4, I can see 2 clean sheets. Zoph. It just looks like
3 and
confirmation
4 are the
bias
big
to me
ones.
because you
3 and
want to
4.
go down.
No.
But 3 and 4 are big ones, and you won't be surprised if they keep a clean sheet in game week 1 as well. And I just want to remember, because you told me after watching that West Ham game how bullish you were on Sufal because how attacking he was. So just want to give you that reminder that you were very impressed by his attacking threat as well. They're just playing as an answer.
The attacking
I
threat,
see the value in going.
And I was also impressed by how solid West Ham were defensively, to be honest. They didn't really give Atlanta much of a sniff, but the caveat with that is the two main guys, Muriel and Zapata, didn't really come on till the last 30 minutes.
Correct. I mean, what I like also about going down on that 5 million to a 4.5 million spot is leaving more cash to invest in attack. And we know for sure we're going to need cash in attack this season, considering the big hitters that are coming to play later.
Correct. Anything else to comment? Shall we move on? There's not really much to nitpick. And I don't see anything besides those 2 spots changing unless there's any injury news.
Bakar? Anything to...
Regarding the 4.0s and 4.5s, let's have a short discussion on why we're picking our 4.0 defenders and our 4.5 midfielders. So why Gilmore for you, Zoph, and why Amarte?
So Gilmore, probably because I read the Scouts' latest article, they mentioned that Gilmore is taking his fair share of set pieces. So it really comes down to him and Brownhill. I watched the Planet FPL correspondent spot. The Burnley guy felt that Brownhill might be at risk because you have, I think, Goodmanson, who possibly could play on that side. They have some options over there. But Gilmore is probably one of the best players in that Norwich team. And even though he's playing deep, I do think he's going to get some set piece chances. He's going to play some of those like through balls which get the assists. And you're never really going to want 3 Norwich players.
Yeah. What I liked about it when I saw the highlights was every pass that he made was forward.
Exactly.
And a lot of through balls as well.
It's going to be fun to watch, right? I mean, you can at least watch and hope something's going to happen.
And nailed on 2 points. That's what you want, right?
And he's not a yellow card magnet like Bissouma.
Exactly. So he's nailed on for 2 points with a slight chance of an assist. So you don't mind that.
Yeah. Amati, do we really need to talk about much? Because I think we really covered Amati previously, right?
Why pick him over Hoover or the other guy? What's his name? The one at
Norwich.
Bakar, can you come a little closer to the mic? Little volume is low.
The 4.0, the 4.0 Norwich guy. What's his name?
Omiba Delhi or whatever. Yeah, but
something like that.
So 2 reasons. I only think he's necessarily starting now because of their COVID crisis, A. And B, even if he does start, how many points is a Norwich defender often going to get you, right? That's my main concern because we are building our teams primarily for the first 6 to 7 weeks. We are likely going to Wildcard after that. So I think we're more likely to get starts out of Amati. And if Amati does start, I think he has more clean sheet potential than the other defenders.
Agree. I completely agree.
Before we move on to Bakar's draft, Xavier in the chat actually mentioned that Gundo at 7.5 is extremely overlooked, and I'm thinking about it. Yeah,
we've been talking about him. We were talking about him. He was the sharpest attacker, and Jota to Gundogan is something I'm considering for game week 2.
Yeah, he's definitely a good player.
And
constantly making those runs.
Particularly with De Bruyne being more of a risk and the fact that he might not be back in the first 3 to 4 game weeks, I think Gundogan is an excellent option. His numbers without De Bruyne were absolutely phenomenal. He's someone who's firmly in my thoughts. I might as well go with him. He's not someone who I've completely ruled out from my thoughts.
Right. Yeah, I see a Man City route to downgrading Mahrez, and I quite like the thought of that. So thank you, Xavier, for mentioning that in the chat. Like Gundo as a pick.
Yeah.
And then Steele also, obviously, because of the other backup keeper for Brighton is injured, the new guy they signed. So Steele is the default backup now.
All right.
Right.
We can move on to Bakar's draft now.
I'm seeing double. I have to rub my eyes a little bit.
You're just getting old, Zoph.
I don't know. I think isn't everybody else seeing double?
Anyways, my team is scarily similar to that of Zoph's.
Scarily similar?
By
14 out of 15?
Just 14, yeah. But the thing is, as I mentioned earlier, on a serious note, this for the benefit of our listeners, I'll run you through my squad. This draft is assuming that Robertson is injured for perhaps 1 to 2 game weeks, and nothing more than 2 game weeks. Sanchez is the goalkeeper. Shaw, Alexander Arnold, Marte I have starting in game week 1, as I spoke earlier about Leicester's clean sheet odds. Um, Rafinha, Fernandez, Salah captain, Shota, Tony, Antonio, and Ings. On the bench, I have Sufal, White, and Gilmore and Foster. Now the thing is, there are two to three things which I'm considering. If Robertson is out for a while, then I think I'm going to get Simicast um, for Sufal, and
I think
probably
you're going to get
upgrade White to
Simicast.
Stones because that is a move I have in my mind, and there are a couple of other things I'm looking at as well. I'm looking to go as cheap as possible in attack. I do think I'd go with the 3-5-2 in the end because I can't see myself going without a City option um, for Norwich. I mean, that's too good a fixture for me to personally overlook, and there might come a situation where I have to pick between one of Ings and Antonio, and that's something I don't ideally want to do, um, but I think there are more sort of differentials to be had in
Neither
midfield, so
of y'all
that might be
thinking
an option
about
I
Callum
might take.
Wilson? Neither of y'all?
If I had
I
another
don't
mil,
think I'd go there.
if I
No,
could squeeze
I don't
out
think I'm gonna go
another
there.
mil, maybe I'd upgrade Tony, but I don't want to lose either Ings or Antonio.
At the moment. Okay.
That's it. I think we can
Exactly.
wrap up and move to the
So
Q&A or anything else.
Greenwood is another one.
Hmm.
Greenwood is another one I'm considering in case I sell Jota. I think he can be the one who can come in, um, and basically those are the lines along which I'm thinking at the moment. I mean, it depends on Robertson news. It depends on what Pep says regarding Stones, um, and and what happens in the coming days. But more or less, I have a rough idea of the people who are locked into my team.
If you were saying today, Bakar, who's going to be in your team on Friday? Simicast or Jota?
Um,
No
If
I
brainer.
if
suspect
if
Robertson
No
will
if
be out for a while,
brainer.
so I think
No brainer.
if Robertson is out for 2 months, what do you reckon, Bakar?
I'd 100% go with Simicast.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, I know it's
Yeah,
it's
he's
it's,
too
it's
good
a
an
gift you're
option
really
for me
tempted
to
by.
pass up
Yeah. All right.
for
Just a
sure,
couple of
for
players
sure.
that are not in our drafts that I want to touch about. I actually want to talk about Greenwood because a couple of people have been asking about Greenwood. What's happening with Greenwood is that Cavani is
I'll
going to be in training at some point this week, and we have Pogba, Sancho, Cavani, Martial, who's linked with a move out at the moment, uh, Greenwood, and one more player. No, but these five guys are vying for three spots up front. So there might be a little bit of rotation happening. The Greenwood has had a full preseason, but it's maybe one performance away from moving out. So I think he's a very solid option for the first 2 game weeks, but beyond that, you can't say with confidence who's going to play. And a couple of people in the chat are also mentioning Solskjaer likes playing Dan James against Leeds as well because of how they set up. He's played
Pace.
both the games against Leeds United as well. So good. That is something worth thinking about, which is why I'm a little iffy on Greenwood. With Jota at that 7.5 million spot, I think it's like for me, Jota's spot to lose. And from what I've read and heard from the Anfield Rap and read from the Liverpool Echo, uh, he looks like he's going to be starting the first 2 games. I'm not worried about it too much. Greenwood is a good pick, but there's a little bit of a minutes doubt. That's something you need to be mindful of.
Right. And I think basically, right, you can
Later,
afford to
Isaac,
have. Go ahead.
just one more point on why I like Simicast more than Jota is basically because when we speak about 4.5 to 5 million defenders for the first 3 to 4 game weeks, we're talking Ben White, Ailing, even Sufal, right? I think that Simicast for a million cheaper can perhaps match them. While in the midfield bracket, where we look at Greenwood, Gundogan, Mahrez, and I think those people can possibly match Jota. So if I look at it in combination, I think that's why I like the Simicast idea because I think there are options to cover Jota in midfield. While I don't think
Don't
there's
get
as
4.0.
good a
Yeah.
saving.
I get your
Yeah,
point.
I
that's
disagree,
just
by
one of
the
the
way.
reasons why I like that idea.
I disagree. We saw the per 90 stats, and Jota tops midfielders. He's right up there for goals per 90 as well as XG per 90. So he's a genuine threat. He's a much bigger threat than the names that you mentioned, in my opinion, if he's getting minutes. So I don't think he's comparable to these players. I think he's a superior asset. That's
Some
just
might
my read.
say, some might say
Fair enough.
he's a no-brainer.
Yeah, poor Bakar.
Let's not
I
pull
mean,
him
he
my
just
leg now.
No, but
no, no.
Bakar, no, honestly, I just want to say
Bakar.
this. I want to think that I actually agree with what you said over there. And the thing is, what people don't take that statement a little bit literally in the sense that they don't look at the rest of the team, right? Now, you look at our teams, the way we structured it. Jota is the only real risk you'd say there. You can afford to carry at least 1 out of 11 risk. You can't have a team with, let's say, Jota, Greenwood, Mahrez, Benrahma. All for all of those guys. That's
Yeah.
taking it too risky. But I think if you're going to have only one punt out of who guys who's a game time risk, I agree with you that Jota is a no-brainer.
I also want to speak a line on defending my boy Bakar. Yeah. He wasn't literal with that tweet. I mean, people were giving him grief for being literal with that tweet. The boy wasn't literal. Cut him some slack. That's all I want to say. So yeah, let's go Team
Well,
Bakar.
truth be told, I
Team
was
Bakar.
actually busy compiling the comparison, and by the time I made the tweet, I realized that Robertson was injured, and I was like, oh damn, I was a bit too
Yeah.
quick.
I wish there were emojis on the tweet. That's the only thing was missing.
I did enjoy reading the
Unfortunately.
comments though, Bakar. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm here to defend you.
Obviously.
All right.
Sure.
Q&A?
Thank you.
Let's do a Q&A, guys. Guys, feel free to ask your questions. We're all yours for 20-ish minutes. And that's that. The
Also
GOAT
worth
is...
mentioning that Firmino and Tsimikas both are starting for Liverpool
Yeah.
tonight.
They had to because
Yeah,
they didn't
this
play
is
yesterday.
Firmino's second game.
Yeah, that's right.
So you'd
Yeah,
expect
yeah.
that. No surprises there.
Yeah, I'd expect Jota to start for sure. That's not a problem.
Yeah. I'd maybe say a little bit of a doubt game week 2, but game week 1, I'd be very surprised if Firmino starts.
Game week 3 is where the real doubt creeps in because with
Chelsea.
Chelsea, I can probably see him dropping Jota to go with the more tried and
Firmino.
tested sort of safer option with Firmino.
I mean,
Raj is asking us, what do you think about Son? It's a pick we should talk about. All three of us are fairly bullish on Son. If we were going without Bruno, Son would be a good option. But if you're going with Mane, if you're going with Bruno, Salah, and Son, it just leads to a lot of sacrifice elsewhere. Great pick. When he's on the pitch, he's always going to get you points. One of the most elite finishers in the league. Very useful from game week 2 to 4 as well. Like I mentioned, that's why I don't mind the Mane price point. Good pick. Really good pick.
Yeah, great pick at 10. Great pick with the fixtures game week 2 to 4. But at 10 million, I just think that investing in him means that a few compromises have to be made, and that's why I'm personally not considering him. Also, I want to see how Spurs do under their new manager, especially if Kane is to particularly leave, because without him, the creativity I sort of doubt where that's going to come from, and that's why I have some doubts over Son to begin the season with.
Creativity is not a case for him, though, while we're talking about Son, because under Mourinho, they didn't create too much,
but they had
especially
Kane.
in the
They
second
had
half.
Kane to create.
Yeah, but
Kane,
the
Kane was
play
great
style
then.
their play style wasn't to create. You know what I'm saying? He was playing sort of like a defensive game. So
I mean,
I don't know.
I looked at some stats recently, which were shared by various content creators on Twitter and on YouTube regarding a Son with
Bakar,
and
just
without Kane
volume
last.
up a little bit.
You have to get closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So last season, Son fared better with Kane than without. But people have been quoting historical stats when Son he did better without Kane in 2018, 19, 17. But what people are forgetting is the fact that then they had Ericsson to create those chances for him. Now Ericsson isn't there anymore, so I mean that's why I'm beginning to doubt who's going to be there and creating the volume of chances. Someone has to be there creating chances at a regular rate.
Mr. Dele Ali is there. He's a good player. Let's not forget. Let's move on. But I think Son is a great pick. I am disagreeing with the boys here. I think I'm not worried too much about the chance creation. The fixtures game week
Yeah,
3 to 4.
it's
are
only
good.
the price, right? If he was even $1 million cheaper, if he was
price.
Mahrez's price, I would say definitely go for Son. The fact that he's just $1 million more really hamstrings the rest of your squad.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Uh,
Goham Gerard is saying that Liverpool lineup is out. Simeka starting. Jota isn't. Gotham, the first team in my opinion was starting yesterday, and I'm expecting sort of like the B team to start today. This is what's been happening in the previous preseason games as well, where Mane, Jota, and Salah have now played 2 or 3 games back to back together. So just wanted to mention that. Uh, let's read out some questions. Do you think Sufal will get more points than Cresswell, or what makes him a better pick compared to Cresswell? Zoph, you want to take this?
I mean, we discussed this with FPL Irons. There are multiple things over here. We don't think Cresswell gets as forward in open play when they go to a back three, which is going to be a large percentage of their games. And also Sufal, I would say in open play in general, even in a four, he has more attacking threat than Cresswell, and he's also taking a fair share of their set pieces now. So I don't think Cresswell is necessarily worth the 0.5 more.
All
Zoph, I have
right.
some stats on this if you please allow
Please,
me to
please,
share.
please.
Yeah, so this calendar year, Sufal's created 8 big chances, Cresswell with 9. So there's not much of a difference in terms of their chance creation this calendar year. Um, in terms of big chances, Sufal has had 2, Cresswell has had 0. Sufal has had eight shots in the box. So I mean, his goal threat is actually a bit underrated. So I think at point 0.5 cheaper, it's an easy selection to go with Sufal. So I mean, don't get me wrong, Cresswell is a very good pick himself, but when Sufal is cheaper, then for that price, I think both have more or less the same assist threat, but Sufal has the greater goal threat plus is cheaper. That is why I prefer Sufal over Cresswell.
Quick Sufal question. Do you think Sufal is a perma play or do you like to rotate him? Because I noticed you've had him rotated in your game week 1 team.
Yeah, I don't think he's a perma play. I don't sort of trust the West Ham defense to play him every single week.
I think he's a perma player, personally.
That's a problem,
I
right? We
think if you
discussed
have
with the West Ham, the fixture sensitivity. There's not really necessarily the defensive XG. There's no real correlation to fixture difficulty.
exactly. All right, guys, we have a super chat from Manpreet Singh Arora. Thank you so much, Manpreet. Your thoughts on his lineup? He's got Sanchez, Shaw, Trent, Sufal, Bruno, Salah, Jota, Barnes, Benrahma, Ings, Wilson. Manpreet, that's going to be very close. If I drop Mahrez, that's probably the lineup I go with in game week 1, except for maybe Wilson, Antonio, contemplation. So I think that's a really, really good team. I can't fault anybody. On his bench, he has Steele, Amati, Veltman, and Obafemi.
Yeah, solid team. I think he's gone instead of Toney, he's gone for an extra midfield. I think instead of Toney, he's gone Benrahma. That's where he's got that
Correct.
0.5 from.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot.
Because otherwise, it's very similar to our teams, Bakar and I discussed earlier.
Yeah, it's a really good team. I'm just
Just as
gonna
a thought, right? The player pool is really, really small this season. There are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be similar. I can wager amongst like Twitter, Clued people, 7 to 8 players are going to be common in every team. And that will change by game
correct.
week 3 or 4, naturally, when all the big guns start coming in.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a little bit of variation between the Simicast goers and the Jota goers. I think that is going to lead to a little bit of
Yeah,
variation in terms of how the teams go up. Because
yeah,
that third Liverpool spot is quite a crucial spot in terms of what decision you make.
completely agree.
Uh, all right. Next question. Thought on 4.5 million Watford defenders. I'll take this one. After looking at their preseason results and sort of like a staggered uh, preseason, I'm not very convinced about them. If I was going for a 4.5 million Watford defender, I would still be going for Bachmann. I saw him at the Euros and I think he's a good keeper. Uh, what's the realistic expectation with Ivan Toney? Aston Villa, and Brighton in the first 5.
Should I
Bakar.
pull up the fixtures? Do you guys know what the
Yeah,
fixtures are?
sure.
Brentford look the sort of same. Brentford look the sort of team which are going to be attacking, which can score in most of the fixtures. And in fact, I was watching you guys podding earlier with FPL Irons when you guys were discussing the promoted teams. He did mention that home and away, their approach is most likely to remain the same. It's like Leeds basically. The philosophy doesn't change. So if they're an attack first team, I think the fixtures are decent enough for him to score in 2 or 3 of those
Yeah.
fixtures. That's fine. And the thing I like about Tony is his price. Honestly, the way I'm looking at it is to keep it as cheap as possible in attack, and he sort of gives me that flexibility at that price. So being the talisman as well, I really like him.
All right, we got a fire chat from, super chat from Fire Talk. Fire chat is, everybody can understand. I'm a fan of the FML FPL pod. But anyway, Fire Talk's question is: any thoughts? He's also a patron, so thank you, Fire Talk. Any thoughts on Trent to Simicast rather than Jota? I've seen a few people saving money and
Yes,
going with downgrading Trent to Simicast. Uh,
this is a very popularly asked question. I personally
I can I say a
won't
couple of
recommend
things?
it. Sure, please go on.
Yeah.
The floor is
Uh,
yours.
so the one thing that I like about Robertson being possibly injured is that Trent gets set pieces from both sides of the pitch now.
Good
While he was
point.
sharing that with Robertson earlier, and I think that's, if anything, it's added to Trent's value more than anything else. And I don't think you can compare the quality of a person who's delivered 170 to 200 points in his last 3 seasons to a player going to be playing his first 6 7 games in the league, however highly rated he is.
Mm.
I agree. So I have two points to make here. Firstly, is the fact that Norwich, Burnley, Brentford, Crystal Palace, and four of their opening six. Now those are fixtures Trent can easily get a double-digit haul in, and defenders tend to like Trent. They tend to haul big whenever they get attacking returns. So personally, I'm not willing to take the risk, and I think it has to be a choice between Simicast and Jota personally. The second point I'd like to make is that a lot of people have actually been asking how the loss of Robertson is going to affect Liverpool this season, and whether they will be the same attacking force as they were um, with him in the side. So I did a bit of research on this, and what I found was that in the past 3 seasons, Robertson has missed 3 games for Liverpool in the Premier League. Liverpool won all three of them 4-1, 3-1, and 2-0. So it's not as if his loss or his absence has affected their results too much. And with how good their fixtures have been and how good they have looked in preseason, I think they will continue their form.
Small sample size, bro. Small sample size. I wouldn't look too much into that sort of a sample size, is all.
Correct.
Fair.
But in general, you have
Yeah.
to think Robbo out will make him.
I mean,
They will make
I
Liverpool
mean,
weaker.
that's all the data I can present. I mean, if the guy's missing 3 games in 3 seasons, then what else can I bring?
You don't consider this data, would be my argument to that. If it, because
Fair.
I don't think three games is a big enough sample size to
Mm,
judge. Uh, all right, guys, want to wrap up now? Zoff, how many minutes are we in? I
I
think
can't really tell
80-ish.
because we had lost a stream in the middle, but I think we have hit close to almost
Uh,
like 2 hours.
I think then we
I
should
think
wrap
one
up
hour
now.
40,
Yeah,
1 hour
now 40,
35, 1
1
hour
hour
40.
40.
I think we've been here for a while now, guys. What's exciting is the next time we're going to be podding together, we'll know our game week one scores, and I just think that's fabulous. Nehal's just sent us another super chat. Let's answer that before we wrap up. Nestle, no. I was actually taught how to pronounce this after the last pod. It's Melie.
Melie.
Uh, yes, Leeds has looked very leaky in the friendlies, and I agree. But because Lorente is one of the best defenders, and he's got a little bit of a knock, so watch out for Bielsa's press conference later in the week and see if he's looking fit. If he is fit, then I think Leeds won't have a problem. And Melier is going to get a lot of saves. Great keeper, rate him. I think he's the best keeper in that 5 million price bracket. So I'm for it.
I think
Right.
he's going to do well over the course of the season, but to begin with, I'm not sure. One last question, guys, I'd like to take is Antonio versus Ings. If you were to pick one, this is a very commonly asked question, so I thought it would be nice if we could address it.
It's a
Antonio
tough
versus
one.
Ings.
Tough
I
one.
think I might find myself in a similar predicament as well. So this is very pertinent to me personally. I like Ings more, but I don't mind Antonio if you don't have anywhere else to save point 0.5.
Hmm.
Ah,
The thing is with Antonio, you can possibly get Ben Rama, who's looking really good. Who else are you going to get in Villa now with that Buendia as a doubt?
correct.
Yeah.
Watkins, if he's fit, if they're playing 4-4-2, is a decent shout.
Correct. But I guess you have only that much budget. You can get it's only either or personally. But
Correct. Yeah. I want to actually take a question from FPL Arrows, who I believe is FPL Fraser from Twitter. And that's actually a really good point. With Ivan Toney, he sees a lot of confirmation bias because just because he's so highly owned, nobody's really questioning the pick that is Ivan Toney. No talk of the risk people are taking with Toney at all. So, Fraser, the 2 or 3 things that stand out to me is what Tom Freeman mentioned, where, uh, you know, you want to back these players early season. Quite often, the excitement and the testosterone levels go down after game week 5 and 6. These guys are best. They're potentially their best at their best in the first few weeks of the season when they're excited and ready. And the second thing I want to mention is something that FPL Ants told me. They've been the top scoring team in the championship in the past 2 seasons, and Leeds United were playing in the championship last season. We know how they did, and also he mentioned that they're generally an all-out attack team. They're going to go for it. So these are the two things that I quite like. There is a risk of him failing and him being around 35-40% owned in the game and losing a lot of value very quickly. But it's just one I'm willing to take. That's all. Anything to add, boys?
I think it reminds me a bit of Callum Wilson since you guys mentioned it early on. You have to keep faith. I mentioned that you guys both got rid. I actually kept Callum Wilson for that game week 3 hat trick. So with these forward guys, you have to be a little bit patient also. Not like he doesn't score game week 1 to get rid, abandon ship. You have to be patient with these guys. And the thing is, the risk is low at 6.5. It's not is taking up 8 or 9 million of your budget. I don't see any better asset at 6.5 in midfield or forward who has more explosive potential.
While we're just talking about forwards, actually, I wanted to mention him and I haven't mentioned it. Is 5.5 million Burnley striker, Vidra. I think he was Wood's first choice partner at the end of last season. And what I've noticed when Yes. But anyway, the telepathic relationship that Chris and him had at the end of last season was
I'm glad we
Call it
extended
a night.
yeah.
I think let's
I'm
call
doing
it a
this
night.
after so long, so
Yeah, why
let's
not?
call it a night now.
No, wait. I want to actually mention this point. I think he's a very underrated 5.55 million option if people are looking to save money in that bracket, because he had a telepathic relationship, and I think he's first choice Burnley striker. I don't think there's going to be too much set of rotation from a Barnes and who's the other guy, Jay Rodriguez in that team. So if you want to go down, I quite like that backup of a Vidra option from Burnley. That's just something I wanted to add. I don't know how I managed to get that out with Zoph on my back. Yeah, but I'm good at this. I'm getting better at this.
Yep, let's wrap up now, guys. Pleasure talking to you again. This will be our last pod now ahead of the game week 1 deadline. We will be joining you, LR and I, on Twitter Spaces most likely on Thursday. So we'll be taking more questions over there.
And Bakar and Zoph and I will be back with you next Tuesday, as usual, around this time. We're looking to shift our time slot from a little earlier to maybe around this time in the stream. So thank you for being with us for the past 2 hours. Yes, Sheila, this stream will be recorded, will be rebranded. Sorry, this
Re-edited,
stream will be...
I'm going to cut out the cutout parts in the middle and I'll fix all that.
Yes, and also, as you guys can see, if you guys haven't already seen it in the previous pods, we've covered defenders in length. We've covered midfielders in length. And we've also done a very interesting roundtable conference where we had Mark Southerns, Tom Freeman, Adam Hopcroft, and FPL General join us on a very special podcast. I mean, that entire roundtable panel had 38 top 10K finishes and 14 top 500 finishes. And we just sit and talk macro FPL. So I highly recommend watching that. And before you leave us, make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button. Good luck for this season. We'll be with you throughout the season. And see you next week, guys.
See you next week. Good luck and goodbye.
See you next week. It was great to be back. All right.